Welcome back, you guys. I'm Tassie, and today for my ghostly vlog update, I'm answering some questions I got, and they're actually pretty good questions. So I was recently asked, basically, can there be two shrines in one household? How do you know when to accept your guides? And do some guides not like children? So first off, the individual who wrote to me also had asked me about, they were kind of afraid that it's like, what if they go and they find out they really don't have guides and they were just kind of crazy this whole time? Because I think it was like a fear that it's like all in your head and you're not really sure. So definitely I'm going to get to all those questions, and I just want to let everybody know, disclaimer always, these are my own personal experiences and stories and my advice that I'm giving you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. I did know a mother and a daughter who actually had a shrine in the same household. So, really, it's actually not good to have two shrines in a house. And I touched base on this briefly about relationships, how that goes hand in hand, and when there are two shamans. So, I mentioned about, like if it's like a husband and a wife, and one individual is already a shaman, it's not really good to raise two shrines. So, what typically happens is that the spirit guides may not always get along. All right. So, even if your family, doesn't mean your spirit guides are going to get along. Most of the time, they won't. So, it's about like, for some people, they end up having an ego trip. They always believe that they're right, they're the stronger and better shaman, especially if they base it off of their journey. If they had an easier time, they may always assume that they are the better, more accurate shaman. And what happens is if people come to like Shai or to Shai Ma, like to look at the future or questions, or if someone's sick and they need you to seek something out, because there's two shamans in a household, you really can't be asking both of them, because sometimes they'll come in with like the proper bundle of money paper and incense sticks for one shaman, right? And it could just be because that shaman is further along in their journey, so they'll just go to that shaman. And then the other shaman may happen to be there, so then they'll just turn and ask the other shaman for their opinion, right? So it's fine in general conversation. If you happen to know shamans and you just ask them, hey, can you ask your spirit guides, do they sense anything, like stuff like that, right? But you can't really have them both shy to see what's going to happen. And a lot of that, it goes down to, people's feelings getting hurt if they're not like the chosen shaman all of the time. So it's really not good to have two shaman shrines. The biggest part being that spirit guides may not always get along. What happens is you start to feel a lot of agitation in the household where there's like a lot of issues. Like stuff that if you took yourself outside of that situation wouldn't even seem like that big of a deal. But then they just start irritating you and you just can't get along. So a lot of your spirit guides, they can keep nitpicking at you and keep telling you different information. And so it's just, typically it's not good. Now, as far as like the mother and daughter that I know, the daughter eventually put her shrine down, and both of them went to their final levels. Both of them were already established shamans, but the thing was, the daughter lived with the mom, and the daughter, she struggled a lot in her shaman journey, so then they just put her shrine down, and they're going to wait until one day she gets married, and then they'll raise her shrine up again. So like as far as like when can you, or when do you know when you should accept being a shaman? So that's really going to depend on the shamans who actually saw you that you were supposed to be a shaman. And, if it was something that was mentioned in passing, then what I would recommend is you go have another clear, where you go into another shaman recently, like now, and then have them really look at you again and see when you should be doing it. So most people, they're not like jumping for joy that they're going to become a shaman. A lot of people will just ignore it. They don't pay any attention to it because it's something that a lot of people putting it on somebody, it can be a lot. Like if from speaking from my own experience, it wasn't welcoming news. It was more like I was terrified I was going to die from a tumor kind of a situation. So for some people, they are excited at the thought of it. Maybe they know a lot of shamans, or they have a good understanding of the shaman world. So then they are more receptive of it, and they will be more willing to do it. Now, definitely, some people will depend on when they're actually married and when they have children. Other people, they can actually do it when they're younger and they're not married. There is a lot of things to consider, though, because if you're a single individual and you're not married, you have to consider how much work it would be if you end up getting married in the future, especially with moving, you guys. Ugh. Taking down your shrine and raising it up again is a lot of work. That alone will deter a lot of people from ever moving again. It's a lot of work. And so, especially like if you're not married, you don't know, and you're not like dating or in a serious relationship, and the other individual that you haven't met yet, you don't know how they're going to handle that. They may not be accepting of it. It could be viewed as a negative for you. But, if you are really willing to accept this, it's forever. Like, they won't leave you alone, okay? Just remember that. But, some people, they may want to do it. And my best advice on that is really to seek out a shaman for them to take a look at you to see, if you're ready to do it. Should you be waiting a year or two? They'll give you better insight on that. Now, as far as, are there shamans or spirit guides who don't like children? Yes, there are. A lot of Tengshan Showa, like the Buddhist type styles, the ones who can really look at the future, past, and present, who are very, very clairvoyant, generally they don't like children. They don't like things that are dirty. So for myself, for example, I don't like things that are dirty. And it's not that I don't like children, I don't like excessive noise. So, like I have a TV and everything, but I never turn it on. I never turn it on because I don't like white noise. And using the vacuum and using the microwave, I have a microwave. I rarely use it. Most of the times it's people who come over and they want to heat up food, they'll use my microwave. But I don't like that excessive noise. So for me, anything that's too noisy, I'm not a fan of. Whereas a lot of shamans who are mostly Tengshan Show, they won't like children. They won't want to have children. They won't want to be around children. They don't want to hold them, especially if they're dirty and drooling everywhere. I am similar, but I'm not extreme. I'm kind of extreme. Like, I don't like dirty things. I don't like things that are dirty, but like I had a dog before and I was perfectly fine with taking care of my dog. But it was just, children is a different level. It's a different level. Like, again, it's not that I don't like children. Children love me for some reason, but it's just, they're messy, like, cause like they're fine if they just sit there and like, but that's not what children are. Children run around, they touch things, they put things in their mouth, they grab things and destroy things. I was a kid once, I know. So it's just like, so for me, it's strictly just the excessive noise, and things being dirty I don't like, but some Huning really just don't like children at all. Same thing with animals. Some spirit guides will not accept animals. I love animals. I love animals. So, to each his own. Everybody's spirit guides is going to be really different. And it will be obvious to you if that's something that they don't like. You'll either suddenly feel sharp pain on your arm or your leg, or you'll start to get a headache. Any one of those things, it'll be very obvious if they don't like something. You'll know. Now, for the people who sometimes believe that, you may just be going crazy, it's not real, like you don't really have spirit guides. Everybody, I believe every shaman probably goes through that. It's not until you actually have a shrine and you shake and you do ceremonies and you've pretty much established yourself as a shaman, do you start to let go of that self-doubt. Most shamans will always have a lot of self-doubt. And I think a lot of it stems from the impact a shaman has on somebody. It's really unnerving, like being the individual who gives off the messages based off of what people are looking for. It's very unnerving. And nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to give out bad information. It is strictly just a learning curve, and you'll have to understand your gift really well. And by understanding it really well, will you have more confidence in what you're doing? Like, for example, when the first time, so I had mentioned this in my previous video, not every shaman has the ability to shayai like the clairvoyant type, where they use candles and flowers, and sometimes people will use like joss money, like the Hmong Asian money that we burn for the ancestors. Not everybody will shayai or like the same way. Some shamans will always have to enter the spirit world on their bench and actually shake to actually be able to seek out the future and the answers for certain questions that are asked, right? But then you have some who will just sit there and you are literally talking to me and I'll like know and I can see everything already. So it's like and a lot of times like so me being the type who is more clairvoyant, if you ask me something, it'll just be whatever they're saying, whatever they're showing me, right? But then what ends up happening is if you do it the proper way, where I have a shrine and everything, and you bring joss money wrapped in like a few incense sticks, oh, the first time somebody actually blew on the incense sticks for me, and then I went to my shrine and I actually did it, it's so strong. You see so much. And a lot of times I'll also look at the actual Hmong money paper. I don't use flowers, but I will actually look at the Hmong money paper. So a lot of images and everything will actually show up on the paper. And it's kind of like for me, when I'm reading the Joss paper, it's when it seems like when I'm reading your lifeline. Like, because everybody talks about, for like Hmong people, like we call it nonda, which is like papers. So it's kind of like me reading off the papers that were meant for your life. That's what it represents. So every shaman's different. You know, that's like how I mentioned. Some will always go into the bench. Some will just use flowers and candles. Some will like write stuff out. So it's really just whatever that shaman spirit guides taught them. And for anybody who's starting off and you're wondering, like, how do you know you're going to be able to shine? For me, my spirit guides told me. So, like, the first time somebody came, I was only on my second level. I wasn't even on my third level, but then I was on my second level, and an auntie had came over asking me to look at something. And my Huang just made me grab the Hmong money paper, and then they had me look at it, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know everything that I would see and that I would know from it. So that's kind of how it started. Like, they literally told me to grab the paper, and then I was holding it, and I'm like, okay. And then that's when it started to come. So it's that's kind of how it worked for me. You like, even if you ask your teacher, like, oh, how do I shayai looking at this piece of paper or something like that, they won't be able to give you the answer because you may not have that gift. Just because you're a teacher and you've seen other shamans do it doesn't mean it's going to work the same for you. So, you know, it's kind of really hard. A lot of this is really dependent on your own skill levels and what you're supposed to do. So you might just look at cloth for all I know, you know? So it's just like, it's very, very different for everybody. And that goes into with the self-doubt thing. You want to do only what is normal, like what appears normal, because if you do something really crazy, you're going to think everybody thinks you're really, really crazy. But sometimes that's what you're meant to do, even if it seems really, really crazy. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do something really crazy, but I'm just saying it could happen. You know, because some people, they'll just look at a bowl of water and then they could see all sorts of stuff. So it is whatever your spirit guides will want. And honestly, if you're not supposed to be the type who's supposed to look at flowers and you go and you stare at a bunch of flowers, like, you may never see anything. No answers will ever come to you. And it's because you're just not going to be that type. All right, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, you guys.